Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many of you here for this webinar today on responsible tourism for a sustainable future, providing positive experiences for visitors, locals, businesses and our climate. And we'll be exploring some of the opportunities that offers us as we go through the webinar today. I'm Rebecca Armstrong. I'm a Sustainable Tourism Specialist at the Travel Foundation. We'll be hosting the webinar today, and this event represents the beginning of an exciting new partnership between Visit Scotland and the Travel Corporation. I'll be pleased to introduce both of them later on. You'll be hearing from both, as well as from a couple of Scottish tourism experience providers about their own approach and the benefits that a responsible low carbon approach offers them as tourism businesses. So just a few housekeeping points before we kick off properly. Please do use the chat function to introduce yourself and your business and your organisation. It'd be great to hear from the people who are here today attending. We'll have time for some questions as well towards the end of the webinar. There's a separate box for those questions, the Q&A box. So do use that icon on your screen to post any questions for the speakers, and we'll address those at the end of the session. Finally, today's session is being recorded so that we can share that as soon as we can after the webinar. Okay, so let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce Lynn Donnelly, who's Visit Scotland's Senior Responsible Tourism Manager, to highlight the partner's shared commitment to responsible tourism and a net zero future, and to talk about it from Visit Scotland's perspective. So over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thanks, Bex. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lynn Donnelly, as Bex said, Visit Scotland's Senior Responsible Tourism Manager, and my role is about delivering Visit Scotland's responsible tourism strategy and working with the industry to develop Scotland as a sustainable destination. So lots of buzzwords there, but what does that all actually mean? So I thought just before we start talking about the partnership with Travel Foundation and TTC, I thought it would be great just to give you an overview of what responsible tourism means for Visit Scotland and put it in the context of tourism and what we're doing here to develop Scotland as a responsible destination. So for Visit Scotland, we take a very holistic approach when we talk about responsible tourism. It's all about tourism being a force for good. So it considers the needs of the visitor and the industry, but it also considers the impact of tourism on the host communities as well as the environment. Ultimately, it is about creating better places for people to visit and better places for people to live. And there's 4 pillars to Visit Scotland's responsible tourism strategy. If we can just go to the next slide, Bex, please, and this 4 pillars will come up. The first is around supporting Scotland's transition to a low carbon economy. So that's working with the industry, helping achieve the net zero targets or helping you on your journey to net zero and the very ambitious climate change targets that we have here in Scotland. The next pillar is around ensuring tourism and events in Scotland are inclusive. So that's about making sure that we're accessible, that warm welcome for everyone when they come to Scotland. The third pillar is ensuring tourism and events contributes to thriving communities. So listening to our communities, working with our communities, making sure the right tourism in the right area. And our final pillar is about supporting the protection and enjoyment of Scotland's natural and cultural heritage. So everything that makes Scotland so unique and our gorgeous landscapes. Now, this is our new business as usual for Visit Scotland. It is core to what we do. And in line with Scotland Outlook 2030, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, our national tourism strategy, we want Scotland to be a world leader in 21st century tourism, and for Scotland to be one of the most economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable destinations in the world. So delighted today to announce a partnership with TTC, supported by the Travel Foundation. And this partnership is all about ensuring tourism is a force for good. So TTC, for those of you who don't know, is a global tour operator with multiple brands across Scotland that brings many visitors to every area in Scotland. And we'll hear from Shannon from TTC later on a bit more about their brand. The organisation is very much aligned with Visit Scotland's values. Responsible tourism and meaningful travel is core to what they do, and we'll come on to touch upon how we're going to work together to really drive that forward and hopefully accelerate change. Now, we know from working with tour operators and from speaking to our visitors through our own visitor surveys, we know that one of the many reasons people come to Scotland is for our world famous views, our scenery, our gorgeous landscapes, our city skylines, everything that makes Scotland so unique and really stand out as a destination. And we at Visit Scotland and the tourism industry have a duty of care to protect these assets for future generations. We also know from visitors that they want to engage with local communities. They want to live like a local. They want immersive, unique visitor experiences. So it's really important that Visit Scotland, the tourism industry, and tour operators are providing the opportunity for visitors to have those meaningful experiences in Scotland. You know, we want them to slow down, to enjoy all areas of Scotland, and visit throughout the year at any time of the year. So how do we communicate all this to our visitors and try to influence their responsible choices at planning stage and also while they're in destination, and make them aware of all the fantastic, meaningful travel experiences that we have to offer? Well, of course, we do that across our own marketing channels, which I'm sure most of you are very engaged with already. But we know that over half of our international visitors book through an intermediary, a tour operator, particularly our long-haul market. So it's really important that we are engaging with organisations such as TTC to offer those meaningful experiences that our visitors desire. Together, we want our visitors to have the opportunity to really feel like they're travelling with purpose and having a positive impact on the destination that they're visiting. Now, we need your help with this, and this is what the webinar is about today. We need to work with the Scottish tourism industry to create those meaningful products and experiences that we can offer to tour operators and also offer to our visitors. Now, meaningful travel experiences, what does that mean? Well, we'll discuss that today, and we're going to hear from the industry what that means to them and what they're offering across their business. But it could be anything from a low carbon experience, so having your green accreditation or having your own climate action plan. It could be about engaging with your local community, an immersive experience. It could be a food and drink, something about a seasonal product and produce. It could also be an agritourism experience, which I know we have many of them in Scotland. So we'll hear more about what those experiences could look like later in the webinar. We want to make sure ultimately that tour operators such as TTC can find and importantly book the meaningful travel experiences that have a really positive social and environmental impact in Scotland. Ultimately, the goal of this partnership is to provide opportunities to our visitors so that they can have a truly sustainable holiday in Scotland. So I will hand over to Shannon, who's going to talk a bit more about TTC and their own journey towards sustainable travel. Thank you.
That's really wonderful. Thank you, Lynn, for such a good overview. And I think I just want to point out that you'll hear Lynn often talk about the fact that her team at Visit Scotland take a holistic approach, as do we. And I like to acknowledge that the language I will often use on sustainable, responsible, regenerative, climate action, I use them all interchangeably and I wrap it all up into one holistic approach. And I just like to acknowledge that because sometimes people have different opinions on the language. From our perspective as the seller in the marketplace, we are absolutely seeing changes in the marketplace. So as Lynn identified earlier, we have a great many brands. We have 40 travel brands, and you'll see them here on your screen. Thanks, Rebecca. Identified in the way in which we allocate them. We have our TTC tour brands at the top of the page. We've got hotel, River Cruise, we of course work with Graham Ward at Radical Travel. He's part of the family of brands. So we have a significant footprint in Scotland and beyond. And that gives us a lot of insight into what's happening in the marketplace. We are absolutely seeing changes in that marketplace. Let's start with booking patterns, for example. We are seeing an ever increasingly shrinking, wasn't quite proper English, but an increasingly shorter booking window. And you probably are experiencing the same. And what that means is it's becoming a really interesting exercise in forecasting for the coming year. As well, we're seeing some real significant changes in destination preferences, as well as that additional seasonal spread. So in some respects, they're indicative of global challenges. A destination such as Scotland stands to see some successes based in these changing patterns. There's certainly a clear shift towards more temperate and in some cases northern climates, and as well as I said, that extension of the shoulder season. It's unfortunate it's happening for weather patterns, but of course the extension of a shoulder season is really great for certain destinations that rely on that seasonality. I'm not going to sit here though and tell you that guests are choosing the Travel Corporation, Trafalgar, Insight, Contiki, and our wider family of brands solely because of our sustainability credential. I will say that foundation is strong. It is sustainability, so it's not always easy to make it simple and accessible as a message, and that is okay in my opinion. But it is absolutely a factor in the decision-making process. Let's say, my opinion is that it's a tertiary decision-making factor. Of course, destination, price, all those typical factors in terms of the decision-making process on where and when to travel still are more important. Where am I going? So this is a change that I support and welcome. And I don't necessarily though see that it's a change we're all prepared for. And by that I mean the trend towards sustainability. And I say the word trend, I probably shouldn't, because it's rather a growing reality. We are experiencing a changing regulatory environment. We are aware that there is a systematic change afoot, whereby the supply chain, which is of course everybody on this webinar, the travel trade distribution network, that's many of us who are going out into market. In fact, that's inclusive of all of us. And we are going to be gradually obliged to share greater insight into our sustainability performance, into what it is we're doing and how our efforts are achieving successes. And so, sustainability, performance on sustainability is quickly becoming, it has already become a need to have. And we're in this really interesting position where in order to continue seeing long-term success in our destinations and to make sure these are wonderful places to visit, they must maintain and be wonderful places to live. And so I believe travel and tourism is really integral to doing that. It's all part and parcel. So the next slide identifies what it is we're doing. So at the top level, and I haven't included this on this screen, the Travel Corporation and our brands were governed from a strategic approach by our sustainability strategy. We call it How We Tread Right. This strategy includes 11 measurable goals. They all align to advance the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and they address issues such as food waste and food production in regions, the overall experience through our Make Travel Matter Experiences program, animal welfare, and more. And that's that real holistic approach that's important and that Lynn acknowledged earlier. Laddering into that is our commitment to achieving net zero emissions. So that is the visual you'll see on our screen. This is the simplest we were going to get it. I think it does outline things pretty clearly, but as you see, and I suggested earlier, sustainability can't be delivered in 3 seconds. So to guide our a commitment to net zero, we have an internal carbon fund. And this is a fund that we have dedicated towards investing in destinations and in our own business to reduce the carbon footprint of our operations, which is something I'm very proud of. We have our net zero roadmap, and this point is a high level piece of guidance for all of our teams designed to reduce the carbon footprint of our Scope 3 emissions. So Scope 3 emissions is all of our trips. All of our trips effectively is all of our partners, and they're critical to us for so many reasons, of course, in making sure that we deliver incredible travel experiences, but in working as true partners to achieve greater sustainability for our destinations so that we can see longevity in our destinations. This, of course, this roadmap includes tactics that affect our suppliers. Some of them are really exciting. We're looking at ways we can't, for instance, shift our transportation to low carbon, because transportation, of course, is it's the second contributor to our carbon footprint. Surprisingly, for some, accommodations is the #1 contributor to our carbon footprint. And so that's where you're starting to look at encouraging renewable energy generation, use and production. So these are all tactics and ways that are going to affect our supply chain at the end of the day. One program we have that we're going to talk a little bit about, and it's really exciting, and it's in many ways more accessible in the short term, because as we've said and will say time and time again, this is a long-term play, are our Make Travel Matter experiences program. Now, these are programs that these are experiences that we have selected strictly for the fact that they are immersive impact experiences that support the environment and the community of the destination. And our criteria are all publicly available. So all of this is to say that as a travel buyer, as the intermediary between the consumer and your incredible destination, this is becoming more and more a motivating factor for the guest, and it's absolutely critical to the way in which we operate. And so it must be a true partnership. We do have resources and teams that you can rely on to enable your journey. And the beauty of this partnership and why I'm so excited about it is because we're bringing the market and the demand, and Lynn brings with her team a really robust program is the wrong word, set of support tools to enable this change. And so I think that you'll see it's sort of the beginning of the new. That was my natural close. Did you pick it up?
I did. Thank you. I was on mute. I didn't respond quickly enough. Thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you, Lynn. That was really great. And we're going to think now really about the opportunities that this opens up for suppliers. And I'm really delighted to be joined by 3 speakers today, who you can see on the slide, and who are going to help us really to dive in a little bit more into how responsible travel and meaningful experiences really look on the ground, and the benefits that approach offers suppliers, operators, the destination, and of course the visitors. So welcome all 3, Scarlett, Rayanne and Laurelyn. Thank you for joining us today. It would be great if you could each just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. So perhaps coming to you first, Scarlett, welcome.
Sure. Hello. Hi. Really nice to be here. My name's Scarlett Sheriff. I'm working as the sustainability manager for some of our travel brands, including Insight Vacations, Luxury Gold, Cost Saver, and Trafalgar. So I work on the travel experience team, and that's very much implementing the Tread Right strategy, which is what Shannon was just talking about, implementing that onto our itineraries and sourcing suppliers in Scotland. So that's me.
Great, thank you. And Rayanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here as well. My name is Rayanne, and I am the Travel Trade and Hospitality Business Development Manager at the National Trust for Scotland, which means I work on behalf of the National Trust's portfolio of properties. If you've not come across us before, we are a conservation charity at our core. with looking after 100+ sites across the length and breadth of Scotland. So as my job title might suggest, I do business development on behalf of the properties, but I'm also involved in product development and developing these experiences with sustainability in mind. I'm going to be talking about a specific experience today, but also a wee bit about kind of the wider Trust's objectives around sustainability.
Great, thank you. And Laura Lynn, welcome. Please introduce yourself too.
Hi, lovely to meet you all virtually. I'm Laura Cummins Fraser. I'm the director of the Dundragon Rewilding Centre. We're a visitor attraction owned by the Enterprises arm of Trees for Life. We're located on our beautiful 10,000 acre conservation estate near Loch Ness. We're about halfway between Inverness and Skye. We just opened in April of last year. We've welcomed almost 30,000 visitors so far. To our beautiful space that has guided and self-guided interpretation, experiential activities for everybody. And we also have a cafe and 40-bed accommodation to allow for more immersive experiences for people to come and just, and discover the beautiful natural and cultural heritage of this area.
Wonderful, thank you. So Scarlett, what's important to the Travel Corporation when you're looking for suppliers to work with for your itineraries, particularly thinking about the Make Travel Matter experiences? What are you really looking for in your suppliers?
Well, our Make Travel Matter experiences are kind of conscious experiences, helping the destination, so positively impacting the environment or the society, the fabric and the community, and keeping that destination alive. So we're really looking for businesses which are conscious of the effect that they have on the planet. So what are they doing apart from their profit margins and also their business, but what are we also invested in the community? Or possibly on the other side, if we're looking at NGOs or associations, are they ready or willing to be able to work with large groups, which is often a different component? And of course, these things are different depending on what sort of supplier you are. It might be food waste if you're a restaurant. If you're a hotel, it might be energy consumption, renewable energies. So it's very different depending on the supplier, but we're looking for best practices, best sustainable practices. And I'm always looking for those suppliers. I'm very keen to find them.
Great, thank you. So coming to you, Laura Lynn, how have you been working on the kind of things that Scarlett's been talking about? What kind of aspects of your operations have you been working on in terms of sustainable and responsible travel?
Yeah, sure. As a conservation charity, I mean, it's especially important that we're sustainable. So it's at the root of everything that we do. When we started this capital works for the buildings to be built, there was a focus on sustainability when we went out to tender for the architects and how they designed the building, and the contractors, what materials that we chose. Unfortunately, being sustainable is sometimes more expensive, so you're left with some difficult decisions in that area of things. But we tried to be as sustainable as possible in every decision made that went into the actual buildings themselves. Community is also a huge part of what we do here, so we consider this community building. They've been consulted all the way through this process, because we want this to be an exemplar of how a conservation estate can provide socioeconomic benefit. So all the procurement that we do focuses on local suppliers as much as we can. Our menu in the cafe is focused on seasonal produce. We eventually want to have a forest garden here. We're already foraging for ingredients right on our land. We want to contribute to the circular economy in that way. And also things like local employment. 9 of our staff who work here live in this glen within 6 miles. So that's really important to us. And, all the things we do day to day, lift sharing, electric vehicles, and we're always trying to improve in that area. It is a focus of ours. So.
Great, thank you. And Rayanne, the same question to you really. What kind of things are you working on as the trust, but also thinking about the Glencoe experience that you
Absolutely.
offer
So,
to visitors as well?
From I guess a trust-wide and the kind of central function that I work in perspective, sustainability is one of the 3 pillars of the trust's wider 10-year strategy, which will actually bring us to our centenary year in 2031, which sounds like it's reasonably far off, but it really isn't. It's coming around quick. So as part of that strategy, we are aiming as an organisation to be carbon negative by 2031, and we have appointed a climate change officer within the organisation. From the travel trade and hospitality perspective, and within our team, we take sustainability in quite a wide context. So obviously the environmental impact that these experiences have is kind of front of mind, but also things like well-being for both the staff at the property, but also the visitor, what the kind of well-being elements they're taking away from it. Our charitable function as a conservation charity, financial sustainability, so we're able to keep these places open and run these experiences for people. Education, and educating people in order to, care for our places long term, and also the community impacts that come into that. Coming on to kind of the more specific with the property and at Glencoe, each of our property comes with its own challenges and opportunities, and we see our role as an opportunity to really get to know our colleagues and shout about the work that they're doing, and helping them then shape their own sustainability initiatives into a sustainable story and a sustainable experience that they can then share with visitors.
Fantastic, thank you. And just thinking about the opportunities that this opens up really for you as suppliers, how does offering a meaningful and responsible tourism experience kind of enhance what you're able to offer to your visitors, what they experience when they come to you, thinking about the Glencoe experience in particular? How does it enhance what you're able to share with your guests?
Absolutely. So this experience was actually developed in partnership with the Travel Corporation. It was a stop that they were making on their itinerary, and they were keen to make it more meaningful for their visitors. So in terms of that partnership activity, that really did open a door for us to be able to kind of delve into this deeper and widen the opportunities for us. I think it benefits us in various ways, not least from an internal perspective. It gives our colleagues, who are all incredibly passionate people about what they do and the care that they put into the environment, it gives them an opportunity to share that passion and to educate people. Normally these people are up a hill fixing things and looking after the biodiversity. So the fact that they're able to come down and talk about it and get really excited about sharing it, and they talk about the different things that are going on in different seasons. But it also then translates into a really lovely visitor experience, because they're getting a fabulous opportunity to really meet an expert and have a bit of a deep dive with them and get that face time and really connect to that natural environment through the storytelling and through a person, which I think in turn means they'll go home with that memory, which is what people make it really special. You want to be able to deliver that wow moment for people in Scotland, and that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Great. Thank you. And has it helped you kind of manage the visitors to the site? I know you're in quite a natural, sometimes fragile environment. Has it helped in terms of how?
So it gives us an opportunity, I guess, to mitigate risk, because they are meeting the ranger in advance. They're kind of hearing about what they can do, what they can see, but also things to avoid. So it's like a positive educational piece rather than putting up the red rope. It's kind of teaching them like what is possible around the red rope, if you like.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And Laurelyn, for you as well, how is that? The offer that you've been able to develop. You said you were able to welcome 30,000 visitors already, which is brilliant. How is the sort of ethos, I guess, of what you offer? How has that enhanced what you're able to share with the visitors?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Marianne's saying, the visitor experience team really thrives on those interactions with the guests. And, it gives them a chance to be in front of a group of people who wouldn't maybe be here otherwise. It wouldn't be part of their itinerary if they were to come on their own. They're often from other countries and they want to explore beyond sort of the postcard version of Scotland and discover new things. They might not have been aware of rewilding or much Gaelic culture before they come here, but by the end of a walk and talk with one of our guides, they're asking questions and they're really curious and interested. And I see that in my team when they light up through those conversations. And even in a group of 50 people, if you're making an impact on 5 of those people, then that's really meaningful. And in turn, the guests who come here benefit from being in a place like this. I mean, there's well-being benefits to being out in nature in a beautiful place, connecting to culture. A lot of people visit Scotland, maybe they have ancestral roots here. So it's connecting them to that as well. So yeah, it just emphasizes that people are a part of what we're trying to do with rewilding and conserving not just the natural, but the cultural heritage as well.
Brilliant, thank you. That's great. And Scarlett, thinking about the guests that come on your itineraries and experience these places, what do you hear from them? You know, what's particularly special for them about the Make Travel Matter experiences and the places that they visit, the people they meet? What do you hear back from them?
Well, I think we can, as Shannon said it, I mean, and also as Laurelyn hit on, it's not often the reason that our guests don't know these places that we're visiting, which are Make Travel Matter experiences. So it's certainly not the reason that they're booking the trip, even though sustainability is becoming more prominent in our world and we have more conscious travelers, but it's not necessarily the reason that they book. But once they have that experience and understand the positive impact that they're having as well, because by visiting they are increasing the positive impact to that destination, then it becomes a heartwarming experience, especially if they're connected to passionate people for an authentic experience, because of course when we're traveling we all want to have authentic experiences, connect to locals, talk to people who live there, who are passionate about that place and who connect them in a different way to their surroundings or to their community where they learn something else. So we often have a really great reaction from the guests, even though that they're not really aware that they're going to be experiencing this. So when they do, it's something that they remember. And also it's a wonderful opportunity to raise awareness, you know, and that's what we have to do. That's actually our responsibility at the Travel Corporation, that we also have to raise awareness on sustainability, on looking after our destinations, on why we travel like this. So altogether, it's a really powerful experience.
Fantastic, thank you. And coming back to you, Laurelyn, as a supplier, what benefits does offering a responsible tourism experience provide for you in terms of opening up these opportunities to work with operators like the Travel Corporation? How does that benefit you as an organisation, as a business?
I mean, yeah, first of all, it increases our footfall here to the property. So we see more visitors. Last year we welcomed, I think it was 41 tour groups from TTC, and this year at least that many. So it's amplifying our message to a wider audience, to people like I mentioned before who might not otherwise stop here. It's helping us normalize sustainable behavior, and by that I just mean making it a part of routine and making it more accessible to people and not like this big concept that's overwhelming. So what we also picked up on last year, which we thought was really interesting, is the itinerary that some of these groups follow. It gives them an opportunity to meet with people in the same day that have very different perspectives. So we've heard that they went to visit a sheep farmer before they came to us, and they're hearing two very different sides of a story. But I think what is also really noticeable is that there's a bridge between those perspectives, and that's that everyone deeply cares about Scotland, the place where we live and work, and the communities that are here and the people who are in them, and we're trying to do the best for them. So it gives them a fuller picture of Scotland, its people, its culture, and natural landscape. And obviously, the more people who come here, you know, that equals more revenue for us, more donations, monetary support, voluntary support towards the charity works, which of course help all the rewilding efforts that we're doing.
Fantastic, thank you. And for you, Rayanne, the same question. What benefits does this open up for you as the trust, but also for the Glencoe site?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what benefits does it offer?
Working with an operator like TTC, whose own values and ethos are very much aligned to what we're trying to do, makes for a really valuable partnership. They're a fantastic sounding board. You know, if we're developing new product, they're wonderful to go to talk to and see if it's going to work or not, and if it's relevant for their buyers. So it kind of streamlines that process a little bit from our end, which is great if you're short on resource or boots on the ground. But also the Make Travel Matter criteria that they have developed, it sets out how a tourism product can be aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So having that tool as a point of reference and a kind of bit of a checklist to understand how perhaps you are, or maybe already aligning to some of the goals, you might be surprised when you see that. It just makes things really, really easy. I know that there'll be a lot of people on this call that have perhaps been on webinars or been to conferences over the past kind of year or two, and there's usually a bit about insights, and they talk about, you know, what are people's drivers for travelling. And as it's been highlighted by Shannon and Scarlett and Laura, the journey to sustainability isn't always necessarily the biggest motivating factor for people to travel. And quite often there is a bit of a gap of what they say. So when they're confronted with a question of, do you care about the environment? Of course, they're going to say, yes, I do. But then when they're presented with multiple options for their travel choice, they're probably going to go with what is most convenient or what is most cost effective, especially with the way the global economy is. So by working with an operator, we're actually playing our part in the education and in the tourism sphere, which I think we do have a part to play in helping visitors make those better choices longer term. And obviously, on top of all that, the dwell time, as Laurelyn alluded to, kind of getting those extra people through the doors that might not necessarily have come, and helping them understand what we're doing, which then translates into commercial income for people wanting to support the charitable efforts of what we're doing, particularly at Glencoe.
Fabulous, thank you. And just wrapping up this session, really, I know we could talk all day, but this is great, all the practical advice that you're coming up with as well. But just to wrap up this section, really, what advice would you offer to other businesses? You know, those on this call, those perhaps listening to the recording afterwards, maybe some that are already working on sustainability, some that you know, are thinking about where to start. So to you, Rayanne, again, what advice would you offer to those businesses?
I think it is very easy to feel overwhelmed when it comes to sustainability. I think we've all kind of alluded to the fact today it's quite a big topic and something that's a long-term project for a lot of us in the industry. And you might think it's insurmountable, but you are likely to be already doing or behaving or displaying some sustainable behaviours. So my kind of advice is to kind of look at where you are now, and look at what you have and revisit how you communicate about it. With the Glencoe experience, for example, we didn't have to build something new. We didn't have to go out of our way to really overdevelop something. You know, we looked at what we had, which is a fantastic space, and we looked at what we had in that we have got a fantastic ranger team. We just had to put the two together and get the right audience and the right itinerary for that to work. So yeah, I would say that. And in terms of communication, I saw that there's a question come in about how does this play out for a smaller business, like a small B&B. I'm putting my previous hat on. I worked at a DMO. Your local and your national DMOs are your friend. Talk to them and see what their strategies are for engaging with the travel trade.
Fabulous, thank you. Laurelyn, same question for you. What advice would you offer from your experience of starting a new experience, and what would you offer to other businesses?
Yeah, so likewise, I'd say review what you're already doing and identify the things that you're doing well and be proud of those things and be vocal about the things that you're doing really well. And then look for gaps where you can maybe get the quick wins. So one of the simple things to do might be to review your suppliers list and see if there's anything that you can switch out to be more local, more sustainable, where you're procuring from. The other thing we've learned, this has been quite a large project over the course of almost 6 years. But there have been times where we felt very rushed to make decisions. And I would just advise everybody to take a step back when that happens and make sure you carve out time to make the best long-term decision and not that short-term quick fix. And then seek out input and expertise from your own staff, your own colleagues first. And don't be afraid to ask others who've gone through this. I mean, I'm happy to pay it forward. We got a lot of advice from a lot of people over the last years. So, you know, I would say reach out to other people who've gone and done similar things. And I think all of us are willing to share and commiserate and advise. So, and then stick to your ethos, but don't be reluctant to adapt or admit that you don't know the best way to do things, or that someone else may be doing them better, but stay true to who you are, but also don't get stuck. So that's my basic advice.
Fantastic, thank you. And then finally, Scarlett, what advice would you give, as you know, from the other side, from the tour operator side? How can suppliers best respond to this opportunity? I guess what advice would you give to them?
I suppose the good news is that there is there's a growing demand. I mean, look at us. We're the Travel Corporation. We need these experiences. This is part of why we're holding this webinar and looking at Scotland and moving forward. We need experiences. So there is a huge potential for creativity and ideas. And we're really looking forward to hearing from them and working with you, working with suppliers to help you to help us find that experience that is benefiting your destination, and helping, looking into the future, to sustain tourism, and yeah, look at what you're proud of, and start there, like Laura-Lynn and Rianne said, like start where you're already proud of what you have, and maybe work on that. And if you're unsure, if you think the idea is too crazy, well, I think you should just put it forward anyway, because I think it's really worth to think creatively. This is not a time that we've been in before. We need new solutions and new ideas to bring to the table, and we're really ready for it. So I suppose that's really good news.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much, all three of you. I'm sure that's given our audience a lot of ideas and inspirations. That's really helpful to hear the practicalities of how it happens, on the ground. So that was really helpful. Thank you. And if that's the case, if you're feeling inspired and looking for ideas, I'm going to hand back over to Lynn now, just to talk through some of the tools and resources that are available for tourism suppliers, both from Visit Scotland and from TTC. So over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks everyone. That was a really interesting discussion. And just picking up on one of the points there around transparency and sharing ideas and learnings. Throughout this partnership with TTC and Travel Foundation, we will be doing an industry engagement programme. So there will be follow-up webinars, toolkits. We will be very honest about the challenges that we face, what's worked well, what hasn't worked so well. I think it's important that we're transparent, because it is challenging when you talk about responsible tourism, responsible development, particularly net zero. That is something that we have to do in partnership. And I think we need to be really honest about the progress that we're making, the successes, but also where we've found it difficult. So just a couple of resources here to highlight if you're keen to get involved and how you can get started. The first thing I want to mention is working with travel trade. So do you already work with travel trade? Are you travel trade ready? So are you engaged with tour operators, or would you like to find out more? Many of you might know my colleague Rona Wallace, who is on the call today, who leads that team at Visit Scotland, and is very much happy to have a conversation about how you can become travel trade ready. There's some resources on visitscotland.org. I've got the link there, working with the travel trade. That's all about travel distribution and how to prepare with working with tour operators. So the link there will get you started, but absolutely, Rona and the team are happy to arrange any follow-up calls with anyone who would like to know a bit more about that. Second link I've included is Responsible Tourism, a visitor guide for businesses. So further guidance on what do we mean when we talk about responsible tourism. It explains the terminology and the 4 pillars that I mentioned earlier in the webinar. It also discusses our ambition for Scotland to develop as a world-leading sustainable destination. The next resource to highlight is one that we're actually launching today, which we're very excited about. It is for those who are thinking, right, I want to take action. I've been thinking about my environmental impact, but I'm not sure where to start. So we have a free climate action guide resource on visitscotland.org. It will help you understand how you can measure your emissions, but importantly, how you can put a plan in place to reduce your emissions. It includes energy, waste management, transport, so lots of information on there, and it is all free. Now, taking responsibility for your emissions is a challenge. It is a big responsibility. So we are here to support at every step of the way. We will be hosting another in-depth webinar in April, the 25th of April at 2 o'clock. My colleague will pop the link in the chat. That will be a session dedicated to taking climate action. So Visit Scotland's Net Zero Manager, Timod Foley, will be leading that webinar, and it'll be your chance to discuss climate action plans, ask any questions, and Timod will be able to talk you through that. So that link is live, so please do sign up if you would like to find out some more information on that. There's also a net zero inbox address in the climate action guide. So again, any questions that you have, please do get in touch and a member of my team will be able to follow up and answer any questions that you have on that. The next area I wanted to share with you is about sharing your sustainable story. So we all know in Scotland, you in the industry, you are the heroes of the story. You are what our visitors want to know about, all the meaningful travel experiences, everything that's going on to really make us stand out as a unique destination. So we need you to help bring our stories and our news to life. And we know that what resonates with our visitors is everything that's been mentioned today. It's slow travel, sustainability, outdoor, nature, off-season, getting off the beaten track, finding the hidden gems. They want those, you know, the out of the ordinary, unique experiences, whether that be food and drink, agritourism, cycling. They want to hear about that from Scottish businesses. So please do shout about everything that makes Scotland so unique. And we have some guidance on how you can share your sustainable story on VisitScotland.org. We know often there can be a fear of greenwashing, so we've got some top tips on there as how to avoid greenwashing. Just on that note about how you can share your story, I also want to flag that the Scottish Thistle Awards are open, the nominations, so they are about celebrating success in Scotland, industry awards, and really highlighting all these great experiences that we've been talking about today. So I'll pop the link in the chat, but it's a really good way to get exposure if you are a business who's doing great things in responsible tourism. Responsible tourism criteria is embedded in every award, so you have to show that you are demonstrating or being a responsible business. But there's also a standalone climate action award and a standalone inclusive tourism award as well. So for the question about the B&B, who was asked about the B&B, you know, you've got a Silver Green Tourism Award. That's excellent. Definitely think about applying for a Scottish Thistle Award, and I'll pop the details in the chat of how you can do that. We have our meaningful travel experience detail on VisitScotland.org, so a bit more around what meaningful travel means, and also further opportunities about how you can engage with tour operators through our recently launched Tourism Cares Meaningful Travel Map. So there's further details on there. And finally, just picking up on one of the comments that was made about engaging with DMOs. Absolutely, you know, please do engage with your DMO, find out what they're doing about responsible tourism and their own climate action plans. If you are a DMO on this call, then we know there's some great stuff happening already. Those who I work with, Glasgow, are doing incredible stuff, are remained in the top 10 of the Global Destinations Sustainability Index. Visit Aberdeenshire are doing incredible things, engaging their businesses on climate action and sustainability and inclusive tourism. So if you're a DMO and you want to engage with Visit Scotland, then please do get in touch and we can talk more about how we can collaborate on Visit Scotland with Visit Scotland on responsible tourism. Thanks.
Great, and just passing over to Shannon just to talk through some of the Travel Corporation resources that are also listed here as well. Shannon, would you like to?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for that. And thank you, Lynn. That's a really great wealth of resources there. You know, for those of you who are interested in creating a Make Travel Matter experience, our experiences, our criteria are available publicly. In fact, everything on this document is on our Impact Hub, and I will send through the list in just a moment. We're soon going to be launching a new supplier resource hub, and soon is going to be a matter of weeks. You know, and I see a few questions here, sort of, you know, what tips can you give to a small family-run business? How do you start? And there was a comment earlier about how to start. I just want to address that really quickly because these resources are wonderful. Sometimes the challenge is you don't necessarily know where to start in the resources, and I fully appreciate that. You know, there was a comment earlier, just ask, and I can't agree with that more wholeheartedly. Just reach out and ask. if it's a specific particular issue that you have in mind, because this feels massive as an issue, and rightly so it is, but we just need to set aside the scale and the size and start somewhere. You know, you can start with simple things, convenience items at your facility, and abolish single-use plastic. You can put in clean water stations so that guests can reuse water. You can really enable good behavior, and no thing is too small at the end of the day, as long as you're starting and taking steps towards it. I think our supplier resource hub, and Bex will find a way to get that out to everybody. It takes certain issues. What do you do? What would we love you to do on climate that would help us? What would we love you to do on sustainable procurement that would help us? And they're really two sides of things. And I think that we try to take a very tactical approach. And, you know, climate action plans, they sound daunting. They're not. They really aren't. At the same time, we have a lot of resources that can help you and help Visit Scotland, and Visit Scotland has a lot of resources to dive in there. So never be afraid to ask the question, because I think that's what catches a lot of us up. We think it's too difficult, too big, and that we need to be experts. Neither of those things are true. And I say that coming from an SME background. I haven't forgotten. So, you know, just take a look at those. I'll send through the link to the Impact Hub, and first and foremost, ask.
Great. Thank you, Shannon and Lynn. I think, yeah, there's a wealth of resources there, and it's, you know, and they're very accessible as well. I think in terms of, you know, knowing where to start, I think diving into some of those and just getting started with them, they're all really accessible and user-friendly resources. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A box, one of which you've probably also just answered to some extent as well, Shannon. So Jean, a small company offering a really unique service supplying luxury picnic experiences, would love to be able to offer our experiences to the travel trade and wondering how to get involved. I think that's, yeah, probably using some of those resources. Perhaps, I don't know if Scarlett, if you want to respond to that, sort of for other suppliers, I guess, also wondering how to get involved.
Can't see the question. How does this play out for smaller businesses? Is that the question?
Well, there is a question around that, but also another one from a small company wanting to know how to be able to offer their experiences to the travel trade and where to start, really.
Well, yeah, I think the best place then to start is to get in touch, to also ask your peers, either reach out to us to see if that's something that we're interested in, depending if you have an experience which is ready to review, or start a conversation so that we can brainstorm or converse on it. So that would be a good beginning. It's very useful to have a travel perspective, because often we're looking for certain things like access for our groups to arrive there. Our coach vehicles can be quite big, but sometimes we're also arriving on foot. And so these small matters turn into quite big matters when we're trying to arrange these experiences. So trying to thinking about them out loud together is probably one of the best ways to begin.
Great, thank you. And there's another question in the question and answers box from Kate Liddington. So her question is, it was mentioned for accommodation that energy is the most important sustainability aspect. The property I represent is restricted as a listed building for the energy sources that exist already. What would be the next most important thing to focus on? So if energy is challenging, what would be the next thing to focus on in terms of, I guess, reducing impacts, etc.? Anybody like to come in on that one?
Sure, I can pop in.
Yeah.
Context is king, so it really depends on if you're food and bev, if you're transport, accommodations, if you're
accommodation. Yeah,
accommodation. Probably you said that out loud, didn't you? My apologies.
No, that's okay. I just read it.
Then certainly packaging and food and bev and food waste. I would start there. Food waste is one of the largest contributors of climate change that's sort of unspoken, and really understanding how much you're producing, how much you need, where it comes from, is really important. It supports local community regenerative agriculture in our areas. There's a lot of things we can do with respect to circular economy and reducing packaging. And we can put a lot of pressures on the suppliers that we're buying from, which is something we do a lot at our hotel properties. And it's been really, really effective. I think you'll find a lot of suppliers say, yeah, we've been asked this before, we understand. So I think that if you talk about resource use in your facility, it's a really incredible place to start, because it reduces your own, but it signals for your peers and competitors in the space as well, which is useful.
And just in addition to that, Shannon, thanks. I would also say, you know, reach out to others in your sector, particularly, you know, Historic Environment Scotland. They do a lot of climate action planning with their buildings. And I can see in the chat as well there that Lucy from Museum Gallery Scotland has also offered some advice on what they are doing. So, you know, Visit Scotland can make those connections for you if you don't have contacts within those organisations. But ultimately, you know, I know one team in Scotland, we're all really trying to do the right thing, but we need to learn from each other and share best practice. So, you know, I know many people across the sector who are happy to share their learnings and advice. So please get in touch and we can do the connections for you if you need that support.